wildfires.
Spying rows. Germany wants to know whether America monitored German Chancellor Angela Merkel's mobile phone. Chancellor Merkel has demanded a complete explanation of claims that her phone was tapped by US intelligence agents. Now the row threatens to overshadow an EU summit and strain relations between the two countries. President Obama assured Mrs. Merkel the US was not monitoring her calls and would not in future, the White House said. But it raised the question of whether her calls had been listened to in the past. If it's true what we hear, it's really bad. The Americans are our best friends, but this is not going to work. I've expected my phone to be tapped for years, but I didn't expect the Americans to do so.
Abgehört wird. Allerdings habe ich nicht mit den Amerikanern gerechnet.
Germany's newspapers have echoed a sense of public outrage. A front-page commentary in one of the country's most respected papers referred to the biggest affront. Other leaders are likely to want further clarification from Washington at the summit. French President François Hollande has already asked for the issue to be put on the agenda. Blazes and blackouts as Syria, including Damascus, is hit by power cuts after rebels reportedly attacked a gas pipeline. Much of the country was plunged into darkness after artillery struck a gas pipeline that supplies a power station. Residents say the entire capital has been affected by power cuts. The UK-based activist group, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, said rebel shelling had been aimed at the town of Qasula, around 2 kilometres from the airport. Meanwhile, there was positive news coming from Syria.
The joint mission of the Organisation for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons and United Nations are dealing with Syria's program. Reports that it has now visited 18 of the sites disclosed by Syria. The team adds that Syrian work to render critical equipment inoperable has begun at nearly all of those sites.
According to the timetable backed by a UN Security Council resolution passed last month, Syria must complete the destruction of its entire arsenal by the middle of next year.
In the Blue Mountains outside Sydney, people have been returning to what's left of their homes. But as fire services worked to put out the blazes, a plane which was water bombing the area crashed in a national park, killing 43-year-old pilot and sparking a new fire. More than 200 homes have been destroyed, but these residents were keeping a positive attitude.
Yeah, we're rebuilt. Yeah, we've lived here for 33 years, and so we've never had our house destroyed before. So I figure if we've got another 33 years, we should be right.
I feel a bit safer now. They basically said that there's not much more that can burn down there, so hopefully go back to work and back to normal.
Cooler weather means the threat from wildfires has eased for now. The Australian military is facing criticism for causing one of the major fires during a training exercise. The Blue Mountains mayor said the army should have known better than to ignite explosives in such conditions. Police have also arrested several children suspected of starting fires. A 13-year-old boy who was carrying a toy gun has been shot dead by police in California. Andy Lopez Cruz was walking along a field on his way to a friend's house in Rosa in the north of the state. Two officers saw him carrying a gun, which they believe to be real. According to a police statement, they called out to him to drop it, then fired several rounds at him from their handguns, killing him on the spot. At a news conference, officers demonstrated the similarities between the toy gun and the real thing. Local people left flowers and lit candles to remember the teenager. The shooting comes a day after a 12-year-old boy in Nevada shot dead a teacher before taking his own life.
Toxic skies, air pollutants are classed as one of the leading causes of cancer. A report published by the International Agency for Research on Cancer has announced for the first time that air pollution causes lung cancer. It puts air pollution in the same category as tobacco smoke, UV radiation and plutonium. Previously, only specific components of air pollution, such as diesel exhaust, were implicated in cancers.
There's a concentration of high pollution through Asia, but also in Africa, which may be surprising. In China and in India, much of what we see is due to coal burning. It's industry and all the industrial development that's taking place in those countries. Here in northern Africa, of course, it's mostly desert with few people, and the particulate pollution that we see there is from wind-blown desert dust. So it's quite different in character than the pollution that's coming from industry.
The agency said the most recent data suggested 223,000 deaths from lung cancer around the world were caused by air pollution.
Baku Jazz Festival. From the 23rd of October to the 2nd of November, the traditional Baku Jazz Festival. Baku will host the spectacular celebration of music with the participation of international jazz stars. Baku Jazz Festival 2013.
L'actualité africaine est bien plus qu'un sujet. La curiosité intellectuelle ne s'enseigne pas, elle se cultive. Le meilleur visa pour l'Afrique ne s'obtient pas dans une ambassade. Les causes justes ne se plaident pas seulement dans les tribunaux. Jeune Afrique, tous ceux qui font avancer l'Afrique s'y retrouvent.
Build effective automated strategies using simple drag and drop technology with the innovative FX Pro Quant Strategy Builder. FX Pro, trade Forex like a pro.
There were fewer people out of work in Spain in the 3 months up to September, thanks to a busy tourist season. The jobless rate was 26% of the workforce, slipping from the previous quarter's 26.3%. It's part of a fragile economic recovery, with exports growing but domestic demand shrinking, which means a sustainable reduction in unemployment may take years. This financial analyst says what we have seen in recent months is a stabilization of the Spanish labor market, but not a recovery. The economic data is getting better, but we think that growth is not strong enough to create significant employment. And we believe that this job creation might arrive later, as late as 2015 or 2016. The jobs numbers were announced one day after the Bank of Spain said the country had come out of recession in the third quarter, with GDP growth of 0.1% from the second quarter. The government hails that as the beginning of the end of the economic crisis. On the streets of Madrid, they're not so sure. This man said, technically, yes, we're out of recession, but in the real economy relating to real people, we're still not seeing it, and we really want to see it. Weak consumer spending and the high unemployment rate mean that Spain is not expected to return to pre-crisis growth levels for several years. And economists say finding suitable jobs for Spain's legions of long-term unemployed will be hard.
Good afternoon and welcome to Euronews live broadcast covering the autumn EU summit taking place here in Brussels today and tomorrow. Angela Merkel is back in the city, bolstered by a resounding election victory, giving her a third Germany's chancellor. Will other European leaders still be able to speak up against her? We'll also be speaking about the Eurozone crisis and migration policy following the recent tragedies in the Mediterranean. Let's cross over to James Freiney at the European Council. Angela Merkel is a veteran, but is there any room from her, James?
Yes, that's right, Isabel. You know, this summit was meant to be about Angela Merkel returning to Europe's centre stage after winning a third term in last month's election. It's being overshadowed somewhat by the allegations that US intelligence tapped her mobile phone. Now, such an invasion of privacy will resonate strongly with the German chancellor, who grew up in communist East Germany. Of course, domestic security issues are outside of EU competences, but it could add momentum to a proposed law to tighten data protection that leaders will debate right here in Brussels over the next 2 days. And there's another key issue at stake here, The EU and the US are negotiating a free trade deal at the moment in the search for jobs and growth. Just how long can these allegations go on without having a negative impact on those talks? Isabel, back to you.
Thank you, James. That is an important headline. In fact, I'm sure we will hear a lot about this issue. And in fact, with me in the studio is Yanis Emanuelidis from the European Policy Center. Thank you for coming. Welcome to Euronews. My colleague was just thinking about the possible impact of these allegations in terms of the trade talks with the United States. What is your opinion on that?
Well, obviously they have a certain impact because this is an issue which is key in Germany, in France, in other member states. But on the other hand, the negotiation with the US are in the interest of the Europeans, are strong in the interest of the Americans. They will have strong economic positive impacts if they can strike a deal. So I think that yes, there is a problem now, there are issues now, but I think that they will be overcome because both sides have a strong interest in striking a deal in the end.
But is there anything that the Europeans can do immediately in short term instead of only complaining so that they can have better protection in this situation?
Well, I think that there is a chance that by both sides will try to identify how to accommodate the other side. And so I think that the Americans, feeling the pressure from the Europeans, will find ways to accommodate the pressure from the European side in order to find a compromise on more important issues having to do with trade.
Okay, let's move on then to Angela Merkel, big election success. She is now in coalition talks with the Social Democrats. Do you think she is now more willing to make some concessions, for example, in terms of austerity, or will it be even more difficult to fight her ideas and her projects?
Well, first of all, after this election result, she still is very strong. She has come even stronger out of these elections, so she will play the key role. And yes, she has to do now. She's entered negotiations with the Social Democrats. But if you look into the past, the Social Democrats have more or less followed the line which has been put forward by Angela Merkel. So there are not any major changes which can be expected. But the Social Democrats are putting pressure on helping to restore growth. So there will be probably more money for the contractual contracts which will come in the future, but nothing spectacular, nothing revolutionary.
I suppose they will be on board as well for this idea that Angela Merkel might be willing to make amendments to the European Union treaties, so the European Commission will have more powers. European Commission can now, or in the future, control more member states' policies in terms of investment, debt, also the budget, of course, even with contractual terms, which is something very important. Is this the best way to address the crisis in the point we are now?
Well, if you think back over the last 12 months, let's say, a lot of things have not been happening. We were awaiting the election results in Germany. We are now awaiting a new government in Germany. So it's good that there is now movement. And now the things which are on the table are not new. But what it seems to be happening is that you see that the elements of a bargain are showing themselves. And this bargain includes probably a strengthening of the Commission, the contractual arrangements between individual member states of the European Union with respect to structural reforms, some money allocated to that, and the key issues which are still have to be decided with respect to banking union. So what we're seeing is not that there are new things on the table, more of you see the cornerstones of a potential bargaining, of a potential deal among the member states of the European Union.
Anyway, towards a more deep integration politically and economically, what do you think it will be the reaction of some important member states like France and Britain? And in more generally, what are their expectations in terms of Angela Merkel third term?
Well, first of all the member states have different expectations, and you need to square the circle. I think the expectation they have with respect to Angela Merkel is that they will see more of the same. Nobody expects that there will be a radical change now in the next term with Angela Merkel, even if it's a different coalition government. But there might be some more room of maneuver here and there. And I think that from the perspective of partner governments, this is something which they consider to be positive.
Okay. Thank you very much, Yanis, for being with us, for all this insight.
Let's take a look now at the Justice Ellipsis building, where leaders of the EU member countries are arriving for the start of the summit. Fresh allegations over US spying and threatening to overshadow this two-day meeting. Reports in German media claim US authorities had been listening in on calls from German Chancellor Angela Merkel's mobile phone. The US ambassador in Berlin was summoned to a meeting with Germany's foreign minister Guido Westerwelle, and Merkel herself phoned US President Barack Obama. French President François Hollande wanted the issue of US spying put on the EU agenda. He's concerned about reports that millions of people in France have had their phone calls monitored. France is backing proposals for EU data protection laws to be imposed on American firms, and for new taxes on companies such as Google, in a bid for Europe to wrest economic control of the internet away from America. Questions about privacy may tie in closely with what's on today's agenda: digital economy, including the creation of a digital single market. It's believed the digital single market would make it faster and easier for businesses to pass information across borders. Digital is a fast-growing economic sector, and talks are expected to touch on copyright, data protection, online payments, and digital signatures. Markets are calm at the moment, and the worst of the Eurozone crisis appears to be, well, the recovery is fragile, and many are saying growth is desperately needed. The leaders will be talking about a range of economic issues: how to get more financing to businesses, particularly small and medium-sized ones will be discussed. Youth unemployment and coordinating economic policies across the bloc are also on the agenda. There's potential for a spat between British Prime Minister David Cameron, who wants to cut red tape when it comes to business regulations, and French President François Hollande, who wants to guard against dismantling social protections for workers, consumers, and the environment. EU Commission President José Manuel Barroso does want to streamline EU regulations, but this is a small item on the agenda for this two-day summit. The summit comes just weeks after 364 migrants died in the Mediterranean when their boat capsized and caught fire off the coast of the Italian island of Lampedusa. The leaders will talk about how to prevent more tragedies like this one happening. With migrant numbers increasing, especially due to the conflict in Syria, analysts say it's time for the EU to define a common policy on how to deal with refugees. Stay with us here at Euronews. We're bringing you live coverage of this EU summit in Brussels. According to the letter from the President of the European Council to the 28 leaders, this summit will cover several topics, including digital economy and innovation, the Youth Employment Initiative, and the Eastern Partnership Summit. But the big topic is progress on banking union. We'll talk more about this after the break. For the news, for live coverage of the EU summit, stay tuned to Euronews.
The Astana Opera Theatre in Kazakhstan staged a major production this year. Honoured guests from over 25 countries enjoyed the premiere of Giuseppe Verdi's opera Attila on the first day of the new season. The President of Kazakhstan, Nursultan Nazarbayev, was in attendance. He was joined by the heads of the world's major theatres, such as La Scala, Covent Garden, and the Scottish Opera. Today, we welcome of the largest theatres to the world premiere of Astana Opera. We have the President of the Opera House from London's Covent Garden, representatives of Rome's theatres, Italian theatres, and theatres across Europe are all here. Even the President of the Union of the Theatres of Europe, which includes 135 theatres.
Союз европейских театров оперы Европы, куда входит 135 театров.
The opera is based on historical events of the 5th century, when the Roman Empire was under attack from the Huns. Their ferocious leader Attila conquered many European tribes and dreamed of conquering Rome. The opera features vast crowd scenes and spectacular arias. Renowned Italian artist Pierluigi Pizzi was stage and set director. I had some very good tool makers. The orchestra was just magnificent, and so were the choir and the ballet group. And I'd like to draw special attention to the young Kazakh soldiers who, for the first time, took part in the performance as well. So the Huns that you see on stage are real soldiers from Kazakhstan. Several opera theatres were involved in the exclusive preparation of this world premiere. The Mariinsky Theatre is represented here with stage decoration by the Roman Theatre. Italian design companies also made all the performance costumes, and the Teatro La Fenice from Venice organized the exhibition in the hall. The Bolshoi Theatre of Russia also held an exhibition featuring dresses.
Indonesian Fashion Week has kicked off in Jakarta. The collections on the catwalk included traditional batik and lots of silk. The MV Lydia collection was particularly elegant.
Fashion Week is really to move about the fashion industry. The fashion industry is not only promoting the fashion designers, but really moving the needles of the fashion industry to the next greatness. To make that, to believe, to make it a reality that Indonesia is the center of fashion in the region. And I believe that Indonesia has that.
Edward Huta-Barat's collection included traditional batik elements along with playful colours. Defi Setia One summer collection was also well received. Over the week, 230 designers and fashion brands will be shown in Jakarta, including 6 from the Netherlands, Thailand, Korea, and Japan. I see a lot of young designers here at this year's event. I think that they're all very talented and on a par with designers from abroad and with their seniors. This event is even better than last year's Fashion Week.
Euronews app. All Euronews is now available on iPad and iPhone. Rational or creative. your way to browse. Get all our programs on demand. Or watch Euronews live. Comment on the topics. Share your opinion with the whole world. Test your knowledge with our news quiz. Euronews Universal, our brand new app, available on the App Store now.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sharon Stone.
Hold this word up. I hold it up because I share it with you. Thank you for acknowledging me today. I cannot tell you how proud I am.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel arriving in Brussels for the two-day summit. She's been avoiding the press mostly so far due to the furore that's been playing out today over allegations that the US was listening in on mobile phone calls.
Und aus aktuellem Anlass möchte ich heute noch
Chancellor Merkel herself called US President Barack Obama to clarify the situation. We believe that President Obama told her that her phone calls will not be listened to. However, there still seems to be some mystery about whether or not her phone calls were listened in on in the past.
Da geht es nicht vordergründig für mich, sondern da geht es vor allen Dingen alle Bürgerinnen und
She's coming to the summit off the back of a resounding election victory. It's her third term as German chancellor. I think she's keen to downplay this whole US spying fiasco. US spying allegations. There are many other things on the agenda for the two-day summit. Spying is not, and she has already spoken to US President Barack Obama personally. But, you know, it's causing a lot of fuss in the German press. Lots of people demanding an investigation into whether or not her mobile phone had been tapped. And the US President, the US ambassador in Berlin called to a meeting with the German Foreign Secretary this morning.
US ambassador in Germany summoned in Merkel's spying row. Fires and darkness as attacks cause power cuts in Syria.
In Australia, people return to what's left of their homes after days of wildfires.
Spying row as Germany wants to know whether America monitored German Chancellor Angela Merkel's mobile phone. Chancellor Merkel has demanded a complete explanation of claims that her phone was tapped by US intelligence agents. Now the row threatens to overshadow an EU summit and strain relations between the two countries. President Obama assured Mrs. Merkel the US was not monitoring her calls and would not in future, the White House said. But it raised the question of whether her calls had been listened to in the past.
Wenn das
If it's true what we hear, it's really bad. The Americans are our best friends, but this is not going to work. I've expected my phone to be tapped for years, but I didn't expect the Americans to do so.
Abgehört wird. Allerdings habe ich nicht mit den Amerikanern gerechnet.
Germany's newspapers have echoed a sense of public outrage. A front-page commentary in one of the country's most respected papers referred to the biggest affront. Other leaders are likely to want further clarification from Washington at the summit. French President François Hollande has already asked for the issue to be put on the agenda. Blazes and blackouts as Syria, including Damascus, is hit by power cuts after the rebels reportedly attacked a gas pipeline. Much of the country was plunged into darkness after artillery struck a gas pipeline that supplies a power station. Residents say the entire capital has been affected by power cuts. The UK-based activist group, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, said rebel shelling in the town of Gassula, around 2 kilometres from the airport. Meanwhile, there was positive news coming from Syria.
The joint mission of the Organisation for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons and the United Nations are dealing with Syria's chemical weapons program reports that it has now visited 18 of the sites disclosed by Syria. The team adds that Syrian work to render critical equipment inoperable has begun at nearly all of those sites.
According to the timetable backed by a UN Security Council resolution passed last month, Syria must complete the destruction of its entire arsenal by the middle of next year.
In the Blue Mountains outside Sydney, people have been returning to what's left of their homes. But as fire services worked to put out the blazes, a plane which was waterbombing the area crashed in a national park, killing the 43-year-old pilot and sparking a new fire. More than 200 homes have been destroyed, but these residents were keeping a positive attitude.
Yeah, we'd rebuilt. Yeah, we've lived here for 33 years, and so we've never had their house destroyed before. So I figure if we've got another 33 years, we should be right.
Feel a bit safer now than they basically said that there's not burned down there, so hopefully go back to work and back to normal.
Cooler weather means the threat from wildfires has eased for now. The Australian military is facing criticism for causing one of the major fires during a training exercise. The Blue Mountains mayor said the army should have known better than to ignite explosives in such conditions. Police have also arrested several children suspected of starting fires. A 13-year-old boy who was carrying a toy gun has been shot dead by police in California. Andy Lopez Cruz was walking along a field on his way to a friend's house in Santa Rosa in the north of the state. Two officers saw him carrying a gun, which they believed to be real. According to a police statement, they called out to him to drop it, then fired several rounds at him from their handguns, killing him on the spot. At a news conference, officers demonstrated the similarities between the toy gun and the real thing. Local people left flowers and lit candles to remember the teenager. The shooting comes a day after a 12-year-old boy in Nevada shot dead a teacher before taking his own life.
Toxic skies. Air pollutants are classed as one of the leading causes of cancer. A report published by the International Agency for Research on Cancer has announced for the first time that air pollution causes lung cancer. It puts air pollution in the same category as tobacco smoke, UV radiation and plutonium. Previously, only specific components of air pollution, such as diesel exhaust, were implicated in cancers.
There's a concentration of high pollution through Asia, but also in Africa, which may be surprising. In China and in India, much of what we see is due to coal burning. It's industry and all the industrial development that's taking places in those countries. Here in northern Africa, of course, it's mostly desert with few people, and the particulate pollution that we see there is from wind-blown desert dust. So it's quite different in character than the pollution that's coming from industry.
The agency said the most recent data suggested 223,000 deaths from lung cancer around the world were caused by air pollution.
Hundreds of bodies believed to have been killed by Serb forces have been found in a mass grave in Bosnia. Forensic teams have exhumed the remains of 268 people so far, buried at Tomaszczyca in the Prijedor area. Sued Zeric was held in Serb detention camps during the war and hopes to find his missing relatives. He said, "I'm searching for my 4 uncles. One has been found, and with God's help, I hope to find the other 3. There are relatives, neighbours and friends who are still missing after all these years. Thank God this mass grave has been found and that this hill has revealed the truth." The existence of the site was known for years, but its whereabouts kept a secret by Serbs. Finally, some former Bosnian Serb fighters admitted the location. A spokesperson for the Missing Persons Institute said that bodies were found piled up 10 metres under the ground. Some identification documents were found next to the bodies. So it can now be said that the victims were residents of 4 nearby villages. They were Bosniak and Croat civilians killed in 1992 in the Prijedor area. It's believed to be the largest grave of mass ethnic cleansing in the former Yugoslav Republic. Around 1,000 bodies were buried there originally, but it's believed some were later dug up and moved elsewhere.
Build effective automated strategies using simple drag and drop technology with the innovative FX Pro Quant Strategy Builder. FX Pro. Trade Forex like a pro.
At two-way, we know that fast, reliable internet is often hard to find. If you have a slow connection where you live, everything can really start to drag. So it's time to look up. At two-way, our satellite delivers fast connection speeds everywhere. Even in remote areas, you can access up to 20 megabit internet, phone, and be ready for satellite TV, all from the same connection. Look up two-way. Visit us at twoway.com.
Boa tarde e
Good afternoon and welcome to the second part of Euronews live coverage from Brussels, covering the EU summit. One of the topics the 28 leaders will discuss are proposals to complete banking union, which is designed to avoid and minimise the impact of the recent financial crisis. They'll hear from Mario Draghi, President of the European Central Bank, in particular the implementation of a supervisory mechanism that will assess whether banks are viable or not. For more on that topic, let's cross over to James Freeney at the European Council.
Onde está o meu colega James Freeney?
With banks in order, will the leaders concentrate more on growth measures, James?
Os europeus vão concentrar-se mais nas medidas de crescimento, James?
Well, Isabel, jobs and growth were always going to be the big topics at this EU summit at a time when the European economy is barely stuttering back into life, really. But as Chancellor Merkel argues, countries have to sort out their finances as well. Now, she wants Eurozone nations to sign up to binding agreements on economic reforms, these kind of contracts that will also set limits on spending. It's a kind of economic government for the single currency area. It was also one of her main election pledges. Now, these agreements will contain deadlines and targets that would be policed by the European Commission. The main details won't be decided at this summit, but they'll be thrashed out in December. Officials say the plan, however, would require treaty change. What's not clear is whether the EU can afford another round of institutional when unemployment is so high and Europe's economy is barely out of the woods. Back to you, Isabel.
Thank you, James. The new rules should make banks more transparent, but are they starting to lend more money to companies and families in order to get out of the current recession?
E às famílias de forma a ajudar a sair da recessão é talvez uma questão importante e por isso in English now I will speak with my guest here in the studio, André Sapir from Bruegel. Welcome to Euronews. Thank you for coming. There are signs of some economic recovery in the last 6 months, but small and medium enterprises that create most of the jobs are still struggling to get money from banks. So can the European leaders claim victory so soon?
Victory is maybe a bit early, but there's no doubt that the fact that the recession is over in many countries, including in Spain, is certainly welcome news. I think what most economists forecast is that in the coming months, in the coming year probably, will be a recovery, but a very slow recovery, and probably too little to decrease unemployment rate. So there is good news on output, on GDP. We are getting to positive territory, but unemployment is probably still going to rise a bit, and so a mixed picture for heads of states of government.
I think maybe there's going to be another shadow. Consider that the European Central Bank will, of course, now start evaluating, like I was saying, which banks are in need of recapitalization, and several hundred billion euros might be in need. Do you agree when some experts say that some of these countries will keep borrowing money mostly to pay debts instead of making public investments?
Yes, I'm afraid this is the truth. There's still a lot of debt to be repaid, and that is the nature of the crisis. Lots of debt was created, and now the debt is to slowly go down before firms will be able to make investment, and that's why recovery is expected to be slow. As far as the amount of money that will be needed for recapitalization, it's much too early to say. The process of investigating what's really on the books of banks and how much they will need, this process is just starting, and it will take until probably next summer for everyone to know what is the actual situation, and then start the process of recapitalization. So we have almost a year ahead for this whole process to be completed.
Okay, in that year ahead that you're speaking, an answer is going into more deep economic and political integration, namely, for example, we've been talking about the specific Eurozone budget, even the creation of the idea of the finance minister, Mr. Euro. Do you think those issues have to be tackled more swiftly?
They cannot be tackled more swiftly. Maybe they should, but the political process does not allow it. I mean, we are now entering into the last year of the current commission. So I think what's on the agenda. Remember, there will be the election in May. So I don't think any new file can really be opened. So what needs to be done now is go ahead with the banking union, with the supervision, with the cleaning up of the banks, and if we can do that by the end of next year, I think this will be a very, very big achievement. Then moving forward in terms of integration, political integration, in terms of finance minister for the euro area, having a budget, specific budget for the euro area. This will be for the next commission to propose.
Very well. Baby steps like usually. Thank you very much, André Sapir, for being with us. Uma recente sondagem.
A recent poll from Gallup shows that most Europeans, including half of the Germans asked, believe there are better alternatives to austerity. The arena for this political combat between southern countries in distress and northern countries in better shape is the European Council. So let's cross over to the Justice Lipsis building here in Brussels. Fresh allegations over US spying are threatening to overshadow this two-day meeting. Reports in the German media claim US authorities had been listening in on calls from German Chancellor Angela Merkel's mobile phone. The US ambassador in Berlin was summoned to a meeting with Germany's foreign minister, Westerwelle, and Merkel herself phoned US President Barack Obama. President François Hollande wanted the issue of US spying put on the EU summit agenda. He's concerned about reports that millions of people in France have had their phone calls monitored. France is backing proposals for EU data protection laws imposed on American firms and for new taxes on companies such as Google in a bid for Europe to wrest economic control of the internet away from America. Questions about privacy may tie in closely with what's on today's agenda: digital economy, including the creation of a digital single market. It's believed a digital single market would make it faster and easier for businesses to pass information across borders. Digital is a fast-growing economic sector, and talks are expected to touch on copyright, data protection, online payments, and digital signatures. Markets are calm at the moment, and the worst of the Eurozone crisis appears to be over. But the recovery is fragile, and many are saying growth is desperately needed. The leaders will be talking about a range of economic issues, how to get more financing to businesses, particularly small and medium-sized ones, will be discussed. Youth unemployment and coordinating economic policies across the bloc are also on the agenda. There's potential for a spat between British Prime Minister David Cameron, who wants to cut red tape when it comes to business regulations, and French President François Hollande, who wants to guard against dismantling social protections for workers, consumers, environment. Yes. President José Manuel Barroso does want to streamline EU regulations, but this is only a small item for this two-day summit. The summit comes just weeks after 364 migrants died in the Mediterranean when their boat capsized and caught fire off the coast of the Italian island of Lampedusa. The leaders will talk about how to prevent more tragedies like this one. With migrant numbers increasing, especially due to the conflict in Syria, analysts say it's time for the EU to define a common policy on how to deal with refugees. Here at Euronews, we're bringing you live coverage of this EU summit in Brussels. Although the economic crisis has been at the heart of several EU summits, the human tragedy with migrants in the Mediterranean earlier this month added a new topic to the meeting. In fact, two of the most affected countries, Greece and Italy, will share the presidency of the European Union in 2014. And migration is the main focus of our programme after the break for the news bulletin. Stay with us here at Euronews.
Euronews presents Euronews Radio. Euronews Radio. It's all about news, business and sports, but also a unique music selection. Listen and you'll see. Euronews Radio is available on euronews.com/radio and on most digital music platforms, including the App Store, Google Play, and TuneIn.
I recently read that in 2014 we will vote for the European Parliament, but I don't really know when. Moreover, given that I'm from Italy but live in Spain, do I have the right to vote in my current place of residence?
Hola. Efectivamente, las próximas elecciones al Parlamento.
Hello, you're right. The next election
elections to the European Parliament will take place between the 22nd and 25th of May 2014. The exact day is decided by each country, and EU citizens will once again choose who will represent them in the European Parliament. Next year's elections do matter for a number of reasons. First of all, MEPs pass laws that affect many aspects of our lives. For example, how many maximum hours employees throughout the EU can be required to work, and how much rest and holiday they must be given, how much mobile phone calls cost when you visit another EU country. The European Parliament now has more power, both to set the political direction of Europe and also over the day-to-day decisions which affect us all. A more powerful European Parliament means more ability to change what needs changing within the EU. Last but not least, for the first time, the Parliament will elect the President of the European Commission based on your wishes as expressed in these elections.
El Parlamento puede promover cambios, los cambios que la Unión Europea necesita. Por último, pero no menos importante, será la primera vez que el Parlamento Europeo podrá decidir quién será el presidente o presidenta de la Comisión Europea. Y ello.
And about your question regarding the conditions to vote for a European citizen residing in another member state, he or she has the right to vote and to stand as a candidate in European elections under the same conditions as the nationals of that country. In your case, as an Italian citizen residing in Spain, you'll have to meet the same conditions as Spaniards. Make sure that you express your intention to vote and ask to be put on the electoral roll in Spain. You'll also have to declare vote only once at the same elections. That means you can either vote for the Italian or the Spanish candidates, but not for both. Finally, if voting in European elections is compulsory in your new country, you're obliged to vote. Voting is not compulsory in Spain.
If you want to ask a question, go to the Euronews website or our social media pages.
Américaine et à la France 47 milliards d'euros. Le tabac est un poids pour la société.
watched news channel in Europe.
Cyprus, in your heart. In your heart.
US ambassador in Germany summoned in Merkel's spying row. Fires and darkness as attacks cause power cuts in Syria.
In Australia, people return to what's left of their homes after days of wildfires.
Spying row as Germany wants to know whether a German chancellor Angela Merkel's mobile phone. Chancellor Merkel has demanded a complete explanation of claims that her phone was tapped by US intelligence agents. Now the row threatens to overshadow an EU summit and strain relations between the two countries. President Obama assured Mrs. Merkel the US was not monitoring her calls and would not in future, the White House said. But it raised the question of whether her calls had been listened to in the past. If it's true what we hear, it's really bad. The Americans are our best friends, but this is not going to work. I've expected my phone to be tapped for years, but I didn't expect the Americans to do so.
Abgehört wird. Allerdings habe ich nicht mit den Amerikanern gerechnet.
Germany's newspapers have echoed a sense of public outrage. A front-page commentary in one of the country's most respected papers referred to the biggest affront. Other leaders are likely to want further clarification from Washington at the summit. French President François Hollande has already asked for the issue to be put on the agenda.
Before an EU summit in Brussels, Malta openly criticised the European Union for not doing more to help them with the migrant crisis. The Maltese government said it saved almost 40,000 migrants in the last 10 years and is in desperate need of some solidarity from EU member states.
My feeling is that Europe is just playing for time. And the European Council this week will just say some words, hoping that the bad weather in winter will discourage the crossings, and hoping that people will just forget until we get to next May or June. More people will start crossing, more people will die.
Hundreds of migrants died this year on the doorsteps of the EU. All eyes are now on the 28 European Union heads of state to come up with some serious solutions. Europe's shame, read a poster hanging in the heart of the EU quarter during a European summit in Brussels. For security reasons, were forbidden from standing beside their banners. Across the road, the President of the European Parliament met the Mayor of Lampedusa and the President of Sicily.
The main obstacle is what I just described. There is no agreement between the 28 member states. The European Parliament has a clear line, but as I mentioned, the opinions between the 28 member states of the European Union, not only on temporary protection or legal on the side of political asylum, are very heterogeneous.
We need to give these people the possibility to live with all these deaths. The idea of Europe itself is drowning in the Mediterranean. Now that you've all seen the boats, something needs to change. So please don't disappoint us. the European heads of state discuss how the EU's migration policy should be reformed, more than 100 migrants arrived safely to the island of Lampedusa, among them scores of women and children.
Two blonde, blue-eyed children taken from Roma families in Ireland have been returned after the DNA tests proved they are their biological children. Irish police and health officials are being accused of racial profiling and incompetence. The 7-year-old girl and 2-year-old boy were taken from two different families in the centre of the country after they looked noticeably different to their parents. The investigation came after a Roma couple in Greece were accused of abducting a little girl. DNA tests showed the girl, named Maria, was not related to them. Bulgarian police are interviewing a Roma couple who they believe could be the girl's parents. They apparently have several children who are blonde and blue-eyed, and according to neighbours used to live in Greece, the pair will take a DNA test.
Blazes and blackouts as Syria, including Damascus, is hit by power cuts after rebels reportedly attacked a gas pipeline. Much of the country was plunged into darkness after artillery struck a gas pipeline that supplies a power station. Residents say the entire capital has been affected by power cuts. The UK-based activist group, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, said rebel shelling had been aimed at the town of Gazula, around 2 kilometres from the airport. Meanwhile, there was positive news coming from Syria.
The joint mission of the Organisation for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons and the United Nations are dealing with Syria's chemical weapons program reports that it has now visited 18 of the sites disclosed by Syria. The team adds that Syrian work to render critical equipment inoperable has begun at nearly all of those sites.
According to the timetable backed by a UN Security Council resolution passed last month, Syria must complete the destruction of its entire arsenal by the middle of next year.
In the Blue Mountains outside Sydney, people have been returning to what's left of their homes. But as fire services worked to put out the blazes, a plane which was water bombing the area crashed in a national park, killing the 43-year-old pilot and sparking a new fire. More than 200 homes have been destroyed, but these residents were keeping a positive attitude.
Yeah, we we've lived here for 33 years, and so we've never had our house destroyed before. So I figure if we've got another 33 years, we should be right.
I feel a bit safer now. That they basically said that there's not much more that can burn down there, so hopefully go back and back to normal.
Cooler weather means the threat from wildfires has eased for now. The Australian military is facing criticism for causing one of the major fires during a training exercise. The Blue Mountains mayor said the army should have known better than to ignite explosives in such conditions. Police have also arrested several children suspected of starting fires.
Toxic skies. Air pollutants are classed as one of the leading causes of cancer. A report published by the International Agency for Research on Cancer has announced for the first time that air pollution is lung cancer. It puts air pollution in the same category as tobacco smoke, UV radiation and plutonium. Previously, the only specific components of air pollution, such as diesel exhaust, were implicated in cancers.
There's a concentration of high pollution through Asia, but also in Africa, which may be surprising. In China and in India, much of what we see is due to coal burning. It's industry and all the industrial development that's taking place in those countries. Here in northern Africa, of course, it's mostly desert with few people, and the particulate pollution that we see there is from wind-blown desert dust. So it's quite different in character than the pollution that's coming from industry.
The agency said the most recent data suggested 223,000 deaths from lung cancer around the world were caused by air pollution.
Hundreds of bodies believed to have been killed by Serb forces have been found in a mass grave in Bosnia. Forensic teams have exhumed the remains of 200 people so far, buried at Tomaszczyca in the Prijedor area. Suad Zerek was held in Serb detention camps during the war and hopes to find his missing relatives. He said, "I'm searching for my 4 uncles. One has been found, and with God's help, I hope to find the other 3. There are many more relatives, neighbours and friends who are still missing after all these years. Thank God this mass grave has been found and that this hill has revealed the truth." The existence of the site was known for years, but its whereabouts kept a secret by Serbs. Finally, some former Bosnian Serb fighters admitted the location. A spokesperson for the Missing Persons Institute said that bodies were found piled up 10 metres under the ground. Some identification documents were found next to the bodies. So it can now be said that the victims were residents of 4 nearby villages. They were Bosniak and Croat civilians killed in 1992 in the Prijedor area. It's believed to be the largest grave of mass ethnic cleansing in the former Yugoslav Republic. Around 1,000 bodies were buried there originally, but it's believed some were later dug up and moved elsewhere.
Good afternoon and welcome to the final part of Euronews live programme from Brussels, covering the EU summit. The death of close to 400 migrants in shipwrecks in the Mediterranean earlier this month has led to anguished calls for Europe-wide action and asylum policy. But divisions among member states could mean the bloc's responsible fall short of expectations. Nevertheless, the southern countries most affected by the influx of migrants promised to pressure their colleagues. Let's cross over to the European Council building and see if the 28 European leaders are ready to start their work. Fresh allegations over US spying are threatening to overshadow this two-day meeting. Reports in German media claimed US authorities had been listening in on calls from German Chancellor Angela Merkel's phone. French President François Hollande wanted the issue of US spying put on the EU agenda. He's concerned about reports that millions of people in France have had their phone calls monitored. Questions about privacy may tie in closely with what's on today's agenda: digital economy, including the creation of a digital single market. It's believed a single market would make it easier and faster for businesses to pass information across borders. Digital is a fast-growing economic sector, and talks are expected to touch on copyright, data protection, online payments, and digital signatures. With markets calm at the moment and many thinking that the worst of the Eurozone crisis is over, there's still the problem of growth. Many saying growth is desperately needed and the recovery is fragile. Leaders will be talking about a range of economic issues, how to get more financing to businesses, particularly small and medium-sized ones will be discussed. Youth unemployment and coordinating economic policies across the bloc are also on the agenda. There's potential for a spat between British Prime Minister David Cameron, who wants to cut red tape when it comes to business regulations, and French President François Hollande, who wants to guard against dismantling social protections for workers, consumers and the environment.
Como dizia há pouco, vamos agora focar.
This part of the programme will focus on migration and asylum issues. The heads of state and government have welcomed the European Commission's decision to create a task force to identify short-term measures. But what are they willing to commit to? For more on that, let's go over to James Franey at the Council. Is this a key moment for member states to reclaim the value of solidarity, and will they back their words with action, James?
Yes, Isabel, I'm here with Finland's Alex Stubb, who joins me now. Thank you for being with us, Mr. Stubb. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks.
First question, I just want to go back on this tragedy that happened in Lampedusa. More than 300 people have died. This is an issue that keeps on coming up. We hear about it year after year. When is the EU going to get serious on tackling this issue?
Well, and as a matter of fact, we've been fairly serious about it already since the 1990s, and I think there are two things that need to be done. One is to look at the root causes. I mean, why do people want to flee their countries, and try to, in one way or another, address that. And the second one is to strengthen Frontex, which is to a certain extent the border control, to make sure that these accidents don't happen. That's what I would say a smaller picture. The big picture is that Europe needs to grapple with immigration together. It's a common problem, common challenge, and also common opportunity, and we need to do it together, not as separate countries.
And on that issue of immigration, I noticed from the draft conclusions at this summit that can has been kicked down the road effectively. It's going to be discussed in June. What do you think EU leaders fear? It seems to be conveniently placed after the European elections.
Well, I think one of the big problems is that each and every member state right now grapples with, I would say, a general population which quite often is hostile to things different, to immigrants, to people coming from outside their country, or to people coming from outside the European Union. And I think we should all have more courage and recognize and realize that all great nations and all great continents have basically been built on immigration. And we just simply need to learn how to cope with it.
But do you think there's a fear amongst EU leaders about the rise of populist parties, and this debate would play straight into their hands? I mean, look at the true Finns in your own country.
Yeah, I think this is one of the big fears that a lot of people have, and I think it's unfortunate. What people need to do is to communicate it better. Of course, there are always difficulties with some immigration, but when it's, for instance, employment or work-based immigration, we should actually welcome it and embrace it. And then we should also seriously think about burden sharing, because there are some countries that have more than their fair share. I'll just give one example from inside the European Union. When we had the last big enlargement in 2004, it was the UK that welcomed people and workers from Eastern and Central Europe. And they should have probably, in my mind at least, deserved a medal for it, whereas there were a lot of countries who said, no, we're not going to take the workers on at this stage.
So you say working together, burden sharing, a common asylum policy, essentially?
Well, immigration and asylum are different things, and in asylum we usually give quotas. I mean, for instance, Finland, 5.4 million, we usually have a quota of 750 per year. With Syria, we have increased that quota. We need to look at these common problems and find common solutions. That's the bottom line. But they are very difficult questions. I fully realize that.
Well, Finnish European Minister Alex Stubb, thank you very much for being with us on Euronews. Thank you. Now back to you, Isabel. Thanks.
Obrigada, James.
The European Council has promised to present a new policy package on home affairs in June 2014. In that new legislation, migration and asylum issues will also be taken into account. But many lives could be lost during the next 8 months, considering the ongoing crisis in the Middle East and Africa, where many of these refugees come from.
De onde partem muitos dos refugiados que vêm para a Europa. Now in English I'm going to speak with my guest here, Aspasia Papadopoulou, senior advocacy advisor at European Council on refugees and exiles. Thank you very much for coming. Welcome. We just heard now the Finnish minister giving kind of a political point of view. From your point of view, what should be the first practical steps in terms of addressing the problem of migration and a lot of refugees coming, namely from Syria, where the situation is very, very difficult, and in somehow creating these humanitarian corridors that everyone seems to be speaking about, but we don't see any practical measures on ground.
I think the incidents have created a political momentum that needs to be used right now. It's an opportunity for the European Union to show that it's truly committed to a common European migration and asylum policy. With regards to people fleeing their countries, fleeing for their lives, such as the Syrians at the moment, or such as Eritreans or Somalis that have been fleeing the country for years and years, it is important to go one step before people actually have to take the boat. It's important to give people the possibility to flee the country in safety and reach Europe in safety. It's important to give them legal means to reach asylum in Europe. And this can be done, for example, through resettlement or humanitarian admission. At the moment, European countries have joined to offer places for resettlement, for Syrians specifically. Some countries like Germany have also offered humanitarian admission places. It is a good step, but it's of course not sufficient, and there's always need for more. European Union countries could do much more when it comes to resettlement. That is, yeah.
It's interesting you say, of course, and the minister also said that it's a European issue. We all have to be on board, let's say. But we have heard in these last days that leaders of Malta, Greece, Italy, Spain, also Cyprus, that they might join forces in a way to get things quickly done. Do you think this will make any change on the ground immediately, and also be kind of a way of convincing the other member states to be more on board, to be more solidary?
There are certain things that need to be done immediately, and it's already late because we have so many deaths. And the things that need to be done immediately is to improve the search and rescue framework at sea. There needs to be binding rules for member states to help a boat get to a safe port, to help people disembark the boat, reach territory, and to be able to seek asylum, to have the claim heard.
And
now,
sorry sorry to interrupt, and these 5 or 6 countries could do it together, the other member states?
No, I don't think so. Southern European countries, unfortunately, right now, basically have to do the job for everybody else. Most of the boats, if not all, arrive there. The southern member states share an incredible burden as opposed to other countries. They can team forces, but they need the help of everybody. The minister just said we need burden sharing, we need responsibility sharing as well. We need solidarity mechanisms in the European Union so that all member states can join forces together. Sharing means sharing money, sharing expertise, sharing people.
From the Commission point of view, namely Commissioner from Home Affairs, she wants Frontex, this European agency to control the borders, to be given more means to fight human trafficking. But somehow we sometimes see that more important than helping people to get to a safe place, they are more focused on getting them out of our continent. So it's not only a technical and financial issue here with the Frontex. Do you think the agency could work in a different way?
You're absolutely right when you say that there's serious concerns with regards to how far Frontex can do that. However, the fact that Frontex is present there in the sea should be used as a potential to make sure that it can also save a boat if necessary. This is, of course, not sufficient. There should be some safeguards as well. Boats should not return to a country like Libya that does not have a functioning asylum system, where people are persecuted or taken to detention. So, in a sense, Frontex could be utilized for search and rescue, but this would not, in any case, guarantee everything. There should be some human rights safeguards and principles there, and there should be monitoring of such operations. And member states should they do their share as well. It should not be Frontex doing everything.
Very well. Thank you very much for being with us here in Euronews.
It's the end of our programme, but we do have time to let you know that the heads of state and government will also discuss final positions for the Eastern Partnership Summit, due to be held in Vilnius on the 28th and 29th of November. Euronews will bring you live coverage of that summit too. Live coverage of the EU summit from Brussels is over, but we'll continue to bring you the main conclusions of the meetings. For now, it's over to the news bulletin. Good night from me.
Obrigada e adeus.
about news, business and sports, but also a unique music selection. Listen and you'll see. Euronews Radio is available on euronews.com/radio and on most digital music platforms, including the App Store, Google Play and TuneIn.
Abu Dhabi is part of the financial highway, Tokyo, Hong Kong, Abu Dhabi, London, New York. Today, if you don't deliver an exceptional technology, solid pricing, 24 hours, with high level of liquidity, you're not part of this market. ADS Securities is a new force in trading. We have offices both in Hong Kong, Singapore, partnership in London. We have invested into technology, people, our clients, and we believe by being positioned from Abu Dhabi, we can contribute to the global marketplace.
Journey back through history. Forge of empires. And witness humanity's greatest inventions. Conquer new territories. Build and expand your city. Research and discover new technologies to lead your empire into a new era. Whether it's by yourself or with friends, forge your own empire. Play now for free at FOE.tv.
There were fewer people out of work in Spain in the 3 months up to September, thanks to a busy tourist season. The jobless rate was 26% of the workforce. The previous quarter's 26.3%. It's part of a fragile economic recovery, with exports growing but domestic demand shrinking, which means a sustainable reduction in unemployment may take years. This financial analyst says seen in recent months is a stabilization of the Spanish labor market, but not a recovery. The economic data is getting better, but we think that growth is not strong enough to create significant employment, and we believe this job creation might arrive later, as late as 2015 or 2016. The jobs numbers were announced one day after the Bank of Spain said the country had come out of recession in the third quarter, with GDP growth of 0.1% from the second quarter. The government